Cognitive dissonance. When your mind fights itself. Ever made a decision then felt uneasy, like your brain was wrestling with itself afterward? That uncomfortable, restless feeling is cognitive dissonance. The mental tension you feel when your actions, beliefs, or values contradict each other. It's not just discomfort, it's your mind's way of screaming. Something doesn't add up. And to get rid of that tension, you'll often rationalize, justify, or even change your beliefs, sometimes without even realizing it. Let's break it down. How it works. 1. You hold two conflicting beliefs or act in a way that clashes with your values. Example, you believe in healthy eating, but you devour a double cheeseburger and fries. 2. Your brain hates the conflict. This mental mismatch triggers emotional discomfort, like guilt, shame, or anxiety. Example, I know this food is unhealthy, but I ate it anyway. 3. You try to resolve the tension. Since it's easier to change your beliefs than your behavior, especially after the fact, your mind starts finding ways to justify the contradiction. Example, one burger won't kill me, I'll eat healthy tomorrow. Why it happens. Your brain craves consistency. It wants your actions, beliefs, and self-image to align. When they don't, it creates a psychological itch that demands scratching. Cognitive dissonance is essentially a self-defense mechanism to protect your ego and identity, even if it means twisting the truth a little. Where you'll see it in action. Relationships. You believe your partner is a good person, but they do something hurtful. To avoid the pain, you tell yourself, they didn't mean it. Shopping and spending. You buy an expensive gadget, then feel regret. Your brain jumps in with, well, it's an investment, I deserve this. Work and career. You believe you're talented, but you get passed over for a promotion. To avoid self-doubt, you think, the boss plays favorites anyway. Politics and beliefs. You support a politician or movement, but they do something questionable. Instead of reconsidering your stance, you might downplay or ignore the bad news. Health and habits. You know smoking is bad, but you smoke anyway. Your mind says, lots of people smoke and live long lives. Sopandan, how people resolve cognitive dissonance. Change the behavior. The healthiest but hardest path, align your actions with your values. Example, start eating healthier to match your belief in fitness. Change the belief. If changing the behavior isn't an option, you might adjust your beliefs to justify the action. Example, maybe fast food isn't that bad after all, it's just calories, right? Add a new belief to bridge the gap. This is a mental loophole. You create an extra belief to smooth over the contradiction. Example, I exercised earlier, so I deserve this burger. Minimize the conflict. You downplay the importance of the dissonance to reduce the discomfort. Example, everyone cheats on their diet sometimes. It's not a big deal. Chakakriya. How to recognize and manage cognitive dissonance. Spot the discomfort. If you feel guilty, anxious, or defensive after a decision, that's a sign cognitive dissonance might be at play. Ask yourself why. What are you trying to justify or downplay? Is it because your actions and beliefs are clashing? Lean into the discomfort. Instead of immediately justifying things, sit with the uncomfortable feeling for a moment. It's your mind's way of telling you something's off, and it's a chance to grow. Realign your beliefs or actions. The most powerful solution is to bring your behavior and beliefs into harmony, even if it's hard. Example, I value my health, so I'm going to prioritize better food choices from now on. When was the last time you caught yourself justifying something that didn't quite line up with your beliefs? Did you change your actions or your thinking? Groupthink induction, when agreement feels safer than the truth. Ever been in a group where everyone seems to agree, even when something feels off, and you stay quiet to avoid rocking the boat? That's groupthink induction. When the pressure to conform pulls people into a false sense of unity, often at the cost of better ideas or even basic logic. Spot the signs. Silence feels safer. You notice a flaw but don't speak up because no one else is. Illusion of consensus. Everyone seems to agree, but mostly because no one wants to disagree. Outsiders seem wrong by default. Any alternative view is dismissed to protect the group's harmony. How to break the cycle. Be the voice, not the echo. If something doesn't sit right, say it, even if no one else does. Invite disagreement. Encourage others to play devil's advocate. The best ideas survive scrutiny. Separate people from ideas. Disagreeing with a point doesn't mean you're attacking the person. Sleepwise thought. A room full of nodding heads doesn't mean they're all thinking. It might mean they've stopped. Ever felt stuck in groupthink? What finally made you speak up or wish you had? Fartia. The Dunning-Kruger effect. When you know just enough to think you know it all. Ever met someone who was terribly confident about something they barely understood, and they didn't even realize how wrong they were? That's the Dunning-Kruger effect at work. It's a cognitive bias where people with low ability in a certain area overestimate their competence, while highly skilled people underestimate theirs, creating a bizarre confidence-flipping gap between what you think you know and what you actually know. How it works. 1. The beginner's high, unconscious incompetence. When you first learn a little about a subject, you feel like you've mastered it because you don't yet know how deep or complex it really is. Example, you watch a few YouTube videos on investing and suddenly feel like a financial expert. 2. The peak of Mount Stupid. This is where confidence is highest, but knowledge is still shallow. You don't know enough to recognize your mistakes. Example, this looks easy. Why do experts make it sound so complicated? 3. The crash, conscious incompetence. As you learn more, reality hits. You realize how much you don't know, and your confidence drops sharply. Example, you start studying investing seriously and realize you barely scratched the surface. 4. The climb of true expertise. With time and effort, you gradually build real knowledge, and your confidence, slowly, returns, this time rooted in competence, not illusion. Example, you finally understand market trends and risk management, but now you're more cautious, knowing there's still more to learn. Why it happens. Lack of metacognition. People who don't know much about a topic also lack the awareness to recognize their own ignorance. Overvaluing early wins. A bit of early success, like guessing right on a trivia question or a lucky stock pick, boosts confidence disproportionately. The curse of knowledge for experts. Skilled people assume that because something feels easy to them, it must be easy for everyone, leading them to underestimate their own expertise. Trucker, where you'll see it in action. Workplaces. A new hire speaks with over-the-top confidence, while seasoned employees quietly solve complex problems. Social media. People share bold opinions on science, politics, or history based on a single article or TikTok video. Hobbies and skills. Someone learns a few guitar chords and suddenly thinks they're ready to perform, while experienced musicians keep practicing in private. DIY projects. How hard can plumbing be? Cue a flooded bathroom. How to avoid falling into the Dunning-Kruger trap. Question your confidence. If you feel overly sure of yourself, especially early on, stop and ask, do I really understand this, or do I just think I do? Seek feedback from experts. People with more experience can see blind spots you miss, even if it's uncomfortable to hear. Stay curious and humble. The more you learn, the more you'll realize there's always more to learn. True experts never stop questioning their knowledge. Watch for quiet competence. Genuine experts often speak with caution and nuance, not loud certainty. If someone sounds too sure, they might be on Mount Stupid. Have you ever looked back and realized you were overconfident about something you didn't fully understand? What helped you see the gap, and how did you handle it? Exploiting empathy. When your kindness becomes a weapon against you. Empathy, the ability to feel and understand someone else's emotions, is one of the most powerful human traits. It fuels compassion, connection, and kindness. But what happens when that very strength is turned against you? Exploiting empathy happens when people manipulate your emotions using your compassion to serve their own agenda. How it plays out. Guilt trips. They frame themselves as the victim, making you feel responsible for their happiness or success. Emotional blackmail. If you really cared about me, you'd do this. Playing helpless. They rely on your kindness to avoid responsibility or effort. Weaponized vulnerability. They share personal struggles, not for connection, but to control how you respond. Why it works. Humans are wired to help. It feels wrong to walk away from someone in need. Empathy blurs logic. The more you feel their pain, the harder it is to see the manipulation. Fear of being heartless. We worry that setting boundaries makes us bad people. How to protect your empathy without losing it. Separate emotion from action. You can care deeply without agreeing to everything. Watch for patterns. True vulnerability seeks understanding, not control. Set compassionate boundaries. Real empathy flows both ways. If someone values you, they'll respect your limits. Have you ever caught yourself overextending for someone, only to realize they were using your empathy to their advantage? What did you learn from it? Micromanipulation. The tiny pushes you don't notice until it's too late. Not all manipulation is loud or obvious. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle enough that you don't realize it's happening. That's micromanipulation. A series of small, calculated nudges that steer your thoughts, emotions, or actions without you even noticing the strings being pulled. How it works. Selective praise. They compliment you, but only when you behave the way they want. Withholding approval. They stay distant or cold until you earn their warmth back. Tiny guilt trips. Oh, don't worry about me, I'll figure it out somehow. Shifting blame in small doses. They never fully accuse you, but imply just enough to make you feel responsible. Why it's so effective. It flies under the radar. One small push feels harmless, but they add up. Self-doubt creeps in. You start questioning whether you're the one overreacting. It feeds on emotional investment. The more you care about the person, the harder it is to notice or resist. How to break the cycle. Watch for patterns. One guilt trip might be an off day, but repeated, subtle manipulation is a strategy. Trust your discomfort. If something feels off, it probably is. Set boundaries early. People who rely on micromanipulation often back off when they realize you won't play along. Have you ever looked back on a situation and realized you were slowly, subtly nudged into doing something you never really wanted to? What made you finally see it? Creating a sense of obligation when a favor becomes a chain. Ever felt like you owed someone, not because you wanted to, but because they made you feel like you had to? That's creating a sense of obligation, a subtle psychological tactic where people make you feel indebted even when you never agreed to the deal. How it happens. Unsolicited favors. They do something nice you didn't ask for, then expect payback. Guilt-driven nudges. After everything I've done for you. Emotional IOUs. They remind you of past help, even if you've already shown gratitude. Subtle social pressure. The fear of looking selfish or ungrateful keeps you from saying no. Why it works. The reciprocity rule. Humans are wired to repay kindness, even when it's strategically given. Social guilt. We hate the idea of being seen as someone who takes but never gives back. Fear of rejection. We worry saying no will damage the relationship. How to break free from false obligation. Recognize the setup. Was the original favor truly a gift or an investment in controlling you later? Separate kindness from control. Gratitude is healthy, guilt is not. Own your no. A real relationship doesn't hinge on keeping score. Have you ever felt trapped in an obligation you never agreed to? What would you do differently next time? The illusion of choice. When every option leads where they want you to go. Ever made a decision only to realize later that no matter what you chose, you ended up exactly where someone else wanted you? That's the illusion of choice. A psychological tactic where you feel like you have control, but the outcome was engineered from the start. How it plays out. False freedom. You're given 2 or 3 options, but they all benefit the person offering them. Example, do you want to donate $5 or $10? Skipping the donation isn't even presented. The lesser evil trick. You're shown an intentionally bad option next to a more palatable one, nudging you toward the better choice, which was the goal all along. Example, would you rather stay late at work or finish this over the weekend? Both options serve their agenda. Overloading with options. You get flooded with so many choices that you default to the one they subtly endorse. Example, 15 complicated phone plans, but the recommended one is highlighted. Why it works. Humans crave control. Feeling like we made the decision keeps us from questioning it. Cognitive ease. When one option seems smoother or faster, our brain prefers the path of least resistance. Loss avoidance. Carefully framed choices make it feel like rejecting any option is a loss, even when it's not. How to spot the setup. Ask, who benefits from my choice? If the answer is always the same person or group, it's worth questioning. Look for the hidden option C. The best choice might be the one they didn't present at all. Slow down. Manipulated choices often rely on making you feel rushed or pressured. Have you ever made a decision only to realize later that every path led to the same outcome? What would you do differently now that you see the setup? Exploiting mirror neurons. When your brain copies without asking. Did you know your brain is wired to mirror the behaviors, emotions, and even beliefs of those around you, often without you realizing it? That's thanks to mirror neurons. Specialized brain cells that fire not only when you perform an action, but when you see someone else do it. It's how we learn and connect, but it's also how we get manipulated. How it happens. Emotional contagion. Someone's stress, anger, or excitement becomes your mood too, even if you were fine before. Copycat behavior. You start adopting mannerisms, habits, or opinions from people you admire or fear. Social influence. Brands, influencers, and even friends model behaviors to make you think, if they're doing it, it must be right. Why it works so well. Your brain craves belonging. Mirroring others feels like a fast pass to fitting in. It bypasses critical thinking. You absorb behaviors faster than you question them. It taps into empathy, making you feel what others feel even when it's not helpful. How to stay in control. Pause before you copy. Ask yourself, do I actually want this or am I just imitating? Choose your influences. Surround yourself with people whose values match the life you want. Protect your emotional space. Recognize when someone else's mood is seeping into your own and reset. What's one behavior or belief you've picked up from someone else and only later realized wasn't truly yours, creating a sense of scarcity? When running out is a sales pitch, not a reality. Ever rush to buy something because it was almost gone, only to realize later that the urgency was manufactured? That's creating a sense of scarcity. A powerful tactic designed to make you feel like time, resources, or opportunities are running out, forcing you to act fast before you miss your chance. How it works. Limited time offers. Only 2 seats left at this price, even when more might magically appear later. Exclusive access. This deal is only for the first 10 people, making you feel special or excluded. Emotional scarcity. If you don't decide now, you'll lose me forever. Leveraging fear to control your response. Why it works. Fear of missing out, FOMO. We value things more when we think they're rare or slipping away. Loss aversion. The pain of losing an opportunity feels stronger than the satisfaction of gaining one. Time pressure kills critical thinking. Scarcity makes us rush, and rush decisions are rarely smart ones. How to avoid the trap. Pause and question. Is this really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, or just framed that way? Compare options. Scarcity tactics often fall apart when you step back and look at alternatives. Flip the mindset. Instead of fearing what you might lose, focus on whether this choice truly benefits you. Have you ever acted on impulse because something felt scarce and later realized it wasn't? What would you do differently now? A lowballing, when the deal starts sweet and ends sour. Ever agreed to something because the initial offer seemed too good to pass up, only to watch the terms change once you were already committed? That's lowballing. A sneaky persuasion tactic that hooks you with an attractive deal, then shifts the conditions once you're emotionally or financially invested. How it works. The bait. You're presented with an appealing low-cost offer, a job with great pay, a car at a bargain price, or a free trial. Example, get this service for just $5 a month. The switch. After you're hooked, the true costs emerge: fees, add-ons, or unavoidable changes. Example, oh, that price doesn't include basic features, those are extra. Emotional anchoring. By the time the real terms surface, you're already imagining yourself with the outcome, making it harder to walk away. Example, you've mentally moved into the car, job, or service, and backing out now feels like losing something you never really had. Why it works. Commitment bias. Once you've said yes, your brain resists changing course, even when the situation changes. Sunk cost fallacy. The more time or energy you invest, the harder it feels to quit, even if it's no longer a good deal. Hope holds you hostage. You cling to the original promise, hoping things might still work out that way. How to avoid getting lowballed. Pause before committing. Ask for all the details up front. If something feels too good to be true, it probably is. Expect the hidden costs. If the first offer seems unusually generous, mentally prepare for the catch. Be ready to walk away. The more willing you are to leave, the less power the tactic holds over you. Have you ever felt stuck in a decision because the term shifted after you said yes? How did you handle it? And what would you do differently now? Creating a sense of urgency. Act now or regret it later. Ever made a decision faster than you wanted to just because you felt like time was running out? That's creating a sense of urgency. A classic manipulation tactic designed to make you act before you think. It plays on your emotions, specifically your fear of missing out, FOMO, and loss aversion, making the idea of waiting or walking away feel like a mistake. How it works. 1. Time pressure. The most common tactic: a countdown timer, a limited time offer, or a push to decide right now. Example: only 3 hours left for 50% off. 2. Scarcity framing. Making you believe the supply is running out, even when it's not. Example: only 2 seats left at this price. Meanwhile, more seats magically appear later. 3. Emotional rush. They frame the decision as urgent and exciting, making you feel like hesitation equals loss. Example: this opportunity won't come again, you have to act fast. Why it works. FOMO kicks in. You don't want to be the person who misses a rare opportunity, even if the rarity is artificial. Your brain shortcuts the process. Urgency pushes you into impulse mode, trading thoughtful analysis for quick action. Loss aversion. Humans hate losing something more than they enjoy gaining something, so the idea of losing the deal hits hard. Number E, where you'll see it in action. Sales and marketing. Buy now. Sale ends tonight. It's on sale again next week. Travel and tickets. Only 1 room left at this price, yet that last room never seems to run out. Relationships. If you don't make up with me now, I'm done forever. They're still there tomorrow. Workplace manipulation. We need a decision by end of day or the opportunity's gone. Was it really that urgent? How to resist the rush. Pause, don't play the game. If someone's pushing you to act fast, it's usually for their benefit, not yours. Ask yourself, would I still want this without the rush? If the answer's no, you're probably being manipulated. Check the facts. Is the urgency real or manufactured? Hint, most last chances aren't. Be okay with missing out. If a good opportunity disappears because you needed time to think, it probably wasn't that good to begin with. Have you ever made a snap decision under pressure only to regret it later? What would you do differently now? The door-in-the-face technique, when a big no sets you up for a smaller yes. Ever turned down a huge, unreasonable request, only to feel obligated to agree to a smaller one right after? That's the door-in-the-face technique. A psychological trick where someone starts with an intentionally over-the-top ask, knowing you'll reject it, just to make their real request seem more reasonable. How it works. The big ask, the door in the face. They lead with an extreme, unrealistic request. Example, can you donate $500? Your predictable rejection. You say no, because who wouldn't? The compromise ask. They pivot to a smaller, more reasonable-sounding request, the one they wanted all along. Example, okay, how about $20? Why it works. Guilt and reciprocity. Saying no makes you feel bad, so you're more likely to say yes to the next request to balance things out. Perceived compromise. The second request feels smaller and more reasonable by comparison, even if it's still more than you'd normally agree to. Emotional relief. You feel like you're helping without committing to the bigger, scarier ask. How to stay grounded. Recognize the setup. If the first request feels absurd, pause and ask yourself what they really want. Judge the second request on its own merit. Is it reasonable or just less unreasonable? Don't let guilt drive your decisions. A polite no doesn't make you a bad person. Have you ever said yes to something, not because you wanted to, but because it felt like the lesser evil after a bigger ask? What would you do differently next time? Bandwagon effect manipulation. When everyone's doing it becomes the only reason you do. 2. Ever caught yourself liking something, not because you genuinely enjoyed it, but because it seemed like everyone else did? That's the bandwagon effect in action. It's our natural tendency to follow the crowd, but when it's manipulated, it becomes a tool to steer your behavior by making you believe popularity equals correctness. How it happens. Social proof overload. Join the millions who've already switched, making you feel left out if you don't. Fake urgency through numbers. 9 out of 10 people choose this, implying the majority must know something you don't. Visible conformity. Seeing others act a certain way makes it feel safer to follow along, even if they're staged, think laugh tracks or planted reviews. Moral bandwagoning. Good people support this cause, framing disagreement as a flaw in your character. Why it works. Humans are social creatures. We crave belonging, and standing alone feels risky. The brain takes shortcuts. If everyone likes it, it must be good. Saves mental effort. Fear of being wrong. When the crowd agrees on something, going against it feels like betting against the house. How to resist the pull. Ask, do I like this? Or do I like that everyone else likes it? Look for the source. Is the popularity genuine, or are you only seeing what they want you to see? Own your opinion. The crowd isn't always wrong, but they aren't always right either. Have you ever realized you were following the crowd, even when it wasn't what you truly wanted? What made you notice? And what did you do next? Foot in the door technique. When a small yes opens the door to a bigger one. Ever agreed to something small, then found yourself roped into a much bigger commitment? That's the foot in the door technique. A sneaky persuasion tactic where someone gets you to agree to a minor request first, knowing it'll make you more likely to say yes to a larger one later. It's a gradual psychological warm-up, and by the time you realize what's happening, you're already halfway in. Chakroll. How it works. 1. The harmless starter request. They begin with something easy, small, or low stakes, something you're unlikely to refuse. Example, can you sign this petition? Or, mind answering a quick survey? 2. The bigger follow-up. Once you've said yes to the first thing, they escalate to a larger, more demanding ask, the one they wanted all along. Example, since you support the cause, would you be willing to make a donation? 3. Your brain connects the dots. Because you already agreed to the small request, you feel psychologically committed to the cause, person, or idea, and saying no to the second ask feels inconsistent with the helpful version of you that just said yes. Why it works. Self-perception shift. After agreeing to the small request, you start seeing yourself as someone who supports that thing, so backing out feels like betraying your new identity. Example, if you sign a petition for environmental action, you now see yourself as an environmental supporter, making you more likely to donate or volunteer when asked next. Commitment bias. Humans like to stay consistent with their past behavior. Once you're in, you're more likely to keep going. Example, if you agree to a free trial, you're more likely to stick with the service, even if you weren't planning to. The sunk cost effect. Even though the initial effort was small, your brain feels like you've invested, so you feel compelled to follow through. Example, after a free sample, buying the product feels like a natural next step, not a new decision. Where you'll see this in action. Sales and marketing. Try it for free. Since you love it, let's upgrade to premium. Charities. Just share this post. Now that you care, would you donate $10 to the cause? Relationships. Can you help me with this one thing? Since you're so good at helping, could you take on this bigger favor too? Workplace. Can you stay late for just 10 minutes? Since you're already here, could you finish this project? How to protect yourself. Treat each ask as a separate decision. Don't let a small yes lock you into a bigger one. Pause and ask yourself if you'd agree to the second request on its own. Notice the shift. If a follow-up request escalates quickly, that's a red flag. Don't fear inconsistency. It's okay to change your mind. Saying yes once doesn't mean you owe endless compliance. Have you ever looked back and realized a small yes led you further than you intended? What would you do differently next time? Cultivating false identity. When who you are gets replaced by who you think you should be. Ever felt like you're playing a role, not because it's who you are, but because it's who the world seems to want you to be? That's cultivating false identity. When you build a version of yourself designed to fit in, impress, or avoid judgment, even if it costs you your authenticity. How it shows up. The work you versus real you divide. Always polished and agreeable at work, even if it drains you. Curating perfection online. Sharing only the highlight reel, never the struggles. Adopting beliefs for approval. Agreeing with the crowd, not because you believe it, but because you fear standing out. Why it's a trap. You attract people who like the persona, not you. It's exhausting to maintain a version of yourself that isn't real. You lose touch with what actually makes you happy, fulfilled, or proud. How to reclaim your real self. Ask yourself, if no one was watching, would I still do this? Lean into discomfort. Authenticity often feels awkward at first, but it's worth it. Remember, the right people will love the unfiltered, imperfect version of you. Sleepwise thought. Wearing a mask for too long isn't just tiring. Eventually, you forget who's underneath. Have you ever caught yourself becoming someone you're not just to fit in? What helped you find your way back? The seeds of self-doubt. When your mind becomes its own worst critic. Ever noticed how a single negative thought can spiral into a full-blown belief that you're not good enough? That's the seeds of self-doubt. Tiny, passing insecurities that, if left unchecked, take root and grow into something powerful enough to hold you back. Where it starts. A small mistake. One failure convinces you you're a failure. Comparison culture. Seeing someone else succeed makes you feel like you're behind. Offhand criticism. A passing comment sticks with you more than a dozen compliments. Why it sticks. Your brain is wired to protect you from failure, sometimes by convincing you not to even try. Negative thoughts feel truer than positive ones, thanks to survival instincts. The longer doubt lingers, the more convincing it becomes. How to uproot self-doubt. Catch the thought. Notice when you're telling yourself a limiting story and challenge it. Flip the script. I'm not ready for this. I'm learning and growing into this. Remember past wins. Self-doubt loves amnesia. Remind yourself of times you succeeded despite the fear. Sleepwise thought. A doubt is just a thought until you believe it. What's one seed of self-doubt you've been holding on to? What would happen if you stopped believing it? Anchoring bias. When the first number sticks, even if it's wrong. Ever noticed how the first price you hear or the first piece of information you get tends to stick in your mind, influencing everything that comes after? That's anchoring bias in action. It's a cognitive shortcut where your brain locks onto the first reference point, even if it's completely arbitrary or misleading. and then uses that as the baseline for all future decisions. How it works. 1. The initial anchor is set. This could be a price, an idea, or even an expectation. It doesn't need to be reasonable, just first. Example, a car is listed at $30,000. Now any lower price feels like a bargain, even if $25,000 is still overpriced. 2. Your brain latches on. The anchor becomes your mental reference point, and you start comparing everything to it. Example, a store shows a shirt, originally $100, now $50. The $100 wasn't the shirt's true value, but $50 feels like a steal. 3. All future decisions are biased by that first number. Even if new information comes in, it's filtered through the lens of the original anchor. Example, you hear a job salary range is $80,000 to $100,000. When they offer you $82,000, it feels low because your brain anchored to the higher end. Chafrakiyar. It works. Your brain loves shortcuts. Anchoring saves mental effort. You don't have to figure out what something's really worth if you already have a starting point. We're bad at adjusting. Even when we know the first number is flawed, we still struggle to mentally shift away from it. First impressions stick. The first piece of information sets the emotional tone, making it hard to rethink things logically. Tucker Sakanti, where you'll see it in action. Sales and pricing. Originally $500, now only $299. You're not judging the $299 price, you're judging the $200 savings. Salary negotiations. We typically offer between $40,000 and $50,000. You're now anchored to that range even if they could go higher. Real estate. A house is listed at $600,000. You negotiate it down to $550,000 and feel like you won, but maybe it was only worth $500,000 to start with. Social influence. Most people donate $100. How much would you like to give? Suddenly, $20 feels cheap, even if it's what you originally intended. How to break free from the anchor. Identify the anchor. Pause and ask, where did this first number or idea come from? Is it credible or strategic? Reframe the comparison. Instead of comparing to the first number, compare to alternatives or your own goals. Example, is this price good for me or just better than the fake original price they showed? Delay your judgment. The longer you wait before making a decision, the weaker the anchor's pull becomes. Set your own anchor. If you're negotiating, start with your own number first. Now they're reacting to your anchor. Have you ever realized you were stuck comparing everything to a misleading first number? How did it affect your decision? And what would you do differently now? Confirmation bias. When you only see what you want to see. Ever notice how once you believe something, whether it's an idea, opinion, or even a hunch, you start seeing proof everywhere, even if that proof is shaky at best? That's confirmation bias. A mental trap where you naturally seek out, focus on, and remember information that supports what you already believe, while ignoring anything that contradicts it. It's not just a glitch in your thinking, it's a key feature of how human brains work. But when it's left unchecked, it can warp reality, cement false beliefs, and make you resistant to change, even when the truth is staring you in the face. How it works. 1. You form a belief. It can be about anything, a political stance, a product, a person, or even yourself. Example, this diet is the best for weight loss. 2. You filter reality to fit that belief. Your brain selectively collects information that supports the belief and ignores or downplays anything that contradicts it. Example, you notice every success story about the diet but dismiss research that shows it's ineffective. 3. Your belief strengthens. The more evidence you collect, even if it's biased or incomplete, the more certain you become that you're right. Example: everyone says this diet works, the critics must be misinformed or biased. Mental shortcuts. Seeking out supporting evidence is easier than digging into opposing viewpoints. Identity protection. Many beliefs, especially about politics, religion, or personal values, become part of your identity. Letting go of them feels like losing a part of yourself. Kakakrit, where you'll see it in action. News and social media. You follow pages that reflect your worldview, reinforcing your beliefs while filtering out opposing ones. Relationships. You focus on signs your partner loves you, or if you're doubting the relationship, you only notice signs they don't. Health and fitness. You swear by a specific workout or diet and ignore research that suggests a different approach might work better. Personal insecurities. You believe you're bad at public speaking, and every awkward moment becomes proof, while the times you did well get forgotten. Depresiwan. How to break free from confirmation bias. Actively seek opposing views. Challenge yourself to explore the other side. Ask, what would someone who disagrees with me say, and why might they be right? Focus on facts, not feelings. When evaluating information, ask yourself, is this true or does it just feel true because I want it to be? Play devil's advocate. Pretend you hold the opposite belief and argue in its favor. It forces you to see the other side more fairly. Embrace being wrong. Being wrong isn't a failure, it's growth. The faster you identify a mistaken belief, the faster you can replace it with a better one. Have you ever realized you were caught in confirmation bias? Only noticing things that supported what you already believed? What helped you break free? Exploiting the need for closure. When the rush to end things works against you. Humans hate loose ends. Whether it's an unfinished project, an awkward conversation, or an unresolved argument, our brains crave closure. It's comforting, tidy, and gives us a sense of control. But what happens when someone exploits that need to get what they want? How it works. Pressure to decide. They push you to make a quick choice, knowing you'll prioritize ending the discomfort over thinking it through. Example: just tell me yes or no, I need an answer now. False finality. They frame the situation as all or nothing to force you into action. Example: if you walk away, that's it, we're done. Withholding resolution. They keep things deliberately unclear, leaving you desperate to close the loop on their terms. Example: they go silent after a fight, knowing you'll chase them to fix it. Why it works. Uncertainty feels unbearable. The brain prefers a bad ending over no ending at all. Emotional exhaustion. The longer the tension drags on, the more you want it to stop, even if stopping means surrendering. Fear of regret. When closure feels just out of reach, you worry. Walking away will leave you wondering, what if? How to resist. Pause the urgency. If someone's forcing a fast decision, ask yourself, is this about solving the problem or controlling me? Get comfortable with discomfort. Incomplete doesn't always mean unfinished. Sometimes leaving things open is better than closing them wrong. Create your own closure. You don't need their permission to move on. Have you ever agreed to something, not because it felt right, but because you just wanted the tension to end? What would you do differently now? The halo effect. When one good trait blinds you to the rest. Ever met someone who seemed charming, attractive, or successful, and instantly assumed they must also be smart, kind, and trustworthy? That's the halo effect in action, a cognitive bias where one positive trait, like good looks, confidence, or status, casts a halo over everything else about the person, product, or even a brand, making you judge them more favorably than you should. It's not just about people either. This bias shapes our views on companies, ideas, and even food. Yes, a healthy-looking snack suddenly seems like it tastes better too. How it works: a standout positive trait grabs you. It could be someone's appearance, a brand's sleek design, or a speaker's charismatic delivery. Example: you meet someone who's tall, well-dressed, and confident, and instantly assume they're competent and successful. Your brain fills in the blanks. Instead of judging each trait independently, you subconsciously assume the person or thing must be equally impressive in other areas. Example: they're attractive, so they probably have a great personality too. The halo becomes reality. This bias influences how you treat the person and how they respond. If you assume someone's kind and treat them that way, they're more likely to behave kindly in return, reinforcing the illusion. Example: you treat a charismatic speaker like an expert, so they act more confident, and now you're even more convinced they're brilliant. Why it works: mental shortcuts. Your brain wants to process information quickly, and assuming good equals good is faster than evaluating each trait separately. Emotional pull. Positive first impressions create a feel-good emotional state, making you want to believe the rest aligns with that good feeling. Social conditioning. We're trained to associate physical attractiveness, status, and confidence with other positive qualities, even though they're unrelated. Where you'll see it in action: job interviews. A well-dressed, charismatic candidate seems more qualified, even if their resume is weaker than the quieter applicant. Celebrities, brands, and products. A phone with a sleek design and cool marketing feels like it must be better than a plain-looking one, even if the specs are the same. Relationships. You meet someone attractive or funny and assume they're also kind, responsible, and emotionally mature without really knowing them yet. How to avoid getting caught in the glow. Separate the traits. Consciously evaluate each quality on its own. Ask yourself, would I still think this product is impressive if I didn't know about that one good thing? Look for evidence, not assumptions. If someone seems smart or trustworthy, what have they actually done to prove it? Pause before deciding. The faster you form an impression, the more likely it's driven by a halo effect. Slow down and give yourself time to see the whole picture. Flip it around. The reverse of the halo effect, called the horn effect, happens when one bad trait makes you assume everything else about someone is bad. Keep an eye out for that too. Emotional contagion exploitation. When their emotions become yours, whether you want them or not. Ever walked into a room and instantly felt the mood shift, like the tension, excitement, or sadness was contagious? That's emotional contagion. Our brain's instinct to mirror the feelings of those around us, but when someone intentionally manipulates this response, it becomes emotional contagion exploitation. A tactic designed to make you absorb their emotions and act in their favor. How it happens. Manufactured urgency. They project panic or excitement, pushing you into quick decisions. Guilt-loaded sadness. Their exaggerated disappointment makes you feel like the villain. Forced positivity. They mask bad intentions with relentless charm or enthusiasm to bypass your doubts. Anger as a weapon. They create an aggressive atmosphere, making you too uncomfortable to resist. Why it works. Your brain mirrors emotions automatically. It's empathy's dark side. We feel what we observe, even if it's not ours to feel. Emotions cloud logic. A sudden surge of fear, excitement, or guilt overrides rational thinking. Social harmony instincts kick in. You want the bad vibes to stop, so you comply to fix the mood. How to stay grounded. Pause and identify. Is this feeling truly yours, or is it coming from someone else? Resist the rush. Emotional urgency rarely leads to wise decisions. Check the facts, not the mood. Look past the emotional fog and focus on what's actually happening. Have you ever caught yourself making a decision based on someone else's emotional state and later regretted it? What would you do differently next time? The Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, when that thing you just learned is suddenly everywhere. Ever learn a new word, hear about a car model, or discover an obscure fact, and suddenly it feels like it's popping up everywhere? That's the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon in action, also known as the frequency illusion. It's not magic or the universe sending you signs, it's your brain's way of filtering information. Let's dive into how this sneaky mental trick works. What's really happening? 1. You notice something new. It could be a word, a product, a song, a place, anything that wasn't on your radar before. Example, your friend mentions a rare Italian dessert called cannoli. You've never heard of it before. 2. Your brain starts tuning in. Suddenly you see cannoli on a cafe menu, hear someone mention it in a show, and spot a recipe on your Instagram feed. It feels like the world is obsessed with it, overnight. The illusion forms. It's not that the thing became more common, you just started noticing it. Your mind, now aware of this new piece of information, unconsciously scans for it and filters out irrelevant details. Reference, confirmation, bias. Each time you notice the thing again, your brain says, "See, it's everywhere," reinforcing the illusion. Pattern recognition. Your mind loves finding patterns, even where none exist. This creates the sense that something must be more common than it really is. Sucker's key, where you'll see it in action. New purchases. You buy a new car and suddenly see that same model on every street. Pregnancy or parenting. Once you or someone close gets pregnant, babies and strollers seem to appear everywhere. Learning something new. You hear an unusual word like serendipity, and then you swear it's in every book, movie, or conversation. Health symptoms. You Google a mild symptom and suddenly you notice every article, commercial, and conversation seems to mention that same health condition. Brands and ads. You look up a product once, and now it feels like the internet won't stop showing you ads for it. Okay, this one's a mix of Baader-Meinhof and targeted advertising algorithms. Why it feels so powerful. The Baader-Meinhof phenomenon creates a false sense of frequency and importance. It tricks you into thinking, this must be a sign. Everyone's talking about this now. Was this always here and I just didn't notice? It's comforting to believe the universe is lining things up just for you, but in reality it's your brain doing what brains do best, finding patterns and filtering noise. How to keep it in check. Remember, it's an illusion, not a coincidence magnet. The thing didn't become more common, your awareness shifted. Pay attention to what you're not noticing. For every new thing you notice, your brain is ignoring 1,000 other things. Use it to your advantage. The same brain quirk that makes you notice random stuff can be harnessed for positive habits. Example, want to focus on gratitude? Start looking for things to appreciate, and suddenly you'll see more of them. Have you experienced the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon lately? What was the thing that suddenly seemed to be everywhere? Authority bias, when titles outweigh truth. Ever wondered why we sometimes believe someone just because they hold a powerful title? Whether it's a doctor, a boss, or a celebrity, when they speak, we listen without question. That's authority bias. When we trust the person more than the logic behind what they're saying. Think about it. A doctor prescribes medicine and we take it without asking, but what if it's the wrong diagnosis? The boss approves a flawed project. We stay silent thinking they must know better. An influencer raves about a product. We buy it instantly, forgetting it's probably a paid ad. Respect the truth, not the title. Focus on the facts. Is there real evidence backing what they're saying? Expert or just famous? Are they qualified in this area or do they just have a big name? Trust your brain. Questioning authority isn't disrespectful, it's smart. Sleepwise thought. Don't trust a voice because it's loud, trust it because it's right. Have you ever caught yourself blindly following an authority figure? What made you realize it?